Welcome everybody. It's preview season. We're here. It's started. If you've been on Knowles 24/7, well, if you haven't been on Knowles 24/7, what's wrong with you? If you have been on Knowles 24/7, congratulations, because you have been up to the minute with recruiting coverage, team coverage, and all the other great things. Like I started with, it's preview season. If you've been paying attention, Brendan has already dropped 3 previews. Well, I guess technically 4. He dropped the quarterback preview. He's dropped the running back preview. He's dropped the wide receiver, and he slashed it with the tight end preview also. So 3, technically 4 positions covered. And you know what? Anytime Brendan drops a good preview, we feel like we got to jump on the old video, the whole YouTube wagon here and put out a little something of our own. So Brendan put out the quarterback preview. We're going to jump into it a little bit with of the way that we do it. And Chris Nee said, "Hey, man, I want to join in. I want to join in the fun." Chris, how are you?
I have to earn the paycheck somehow. I mean, I got to show up to work at some point, so I'm back.
Chris just had a great vacation. He looks rejuvenated. He looks refreshed. He looks like he's back at it. I want to ask you. I asked you off air. I'm going to ask you again because I think the people need to see Chris Nee smiling and happy. Vacation was great for you.
Yeah. I recharged. I did 3 weeks. We do one with my family, one with my wife's family, and then a week where it's just me, my wife, and our boys. And I enjoyed all 3, but I very much enjoyed that week where it was just us. We were up in the mountains in North Carolina, had a good old time. I recharged for the first time in a few years, and I desperately needed it. And I think it's going to set me up for a really good football season to be completely in depth with a program that we expect to take a big leap forward.
Good, brother. Glad to hear that for you, man. It's well deserved, been well earned over the years. It's been a shit show around here, but things are finally getting kind of back to where they need to be. Kev, how you doing? You good?
I'm doing great. Couldn't be doing better, AB.
You added any new hats behind you?
No, but I could shuffle them around if that would make it more interesting.
All right, enough of the small talk. I'm small talking because it's quarterback preview. I mean, everybody knows what this one's going to be about. It's going to be about Jordan Travis, the hopefully and I think legitimate Heisman contender. So let's start there. Brendan wrote a lot of words. He put out a lot of data. That's what Brendan does. Brendan is a word and data just mastermind. He's great at it. But I thought it was interesting. He started his initial article about the quarterback position preview with a question. And that question was, how much more improvement does Jordan Travis have in him? Gentlemen, Chris, I'm going to start with you because, again, we were talking about it off air. How much improvement does Jordan have left in his game?
I'm not going to discount his ability to take another step forward because he's done that progressively throughout his career at FSU. But as we said when we were talking about earlier, I think the thing about him is he's holistically understanding what this offense demands of him. And the offense is also entirely built around him. And now the weapons that surround him have just continually taken a leap forward. That offensive line, great deal of depth, as big as it's been around here in 10 years. And as good as I've felt about a front group in 10 years, Trey Benson's a guy who should be a 1,000-yard rusher, and that stable of running backs is very talented. Wide receiver group returns a great deal with a guy like Johnny Wilson leading the way. But then you add a Keon Coleman, who's a legitimate, really talented number 2. He'd be a number 1 for a lot of teams. And then the tight end group is an area where FSU took a massive step forward in the offseason. We all love Biscuit. He's taken a step forward. He's become a better player. But adding a cat like Jaheim Bell really adds a lot of versatility to the offense. I think it just adds another dimension of what Jordan Travis is going to be able to lean into and do. I think one of the bigger storylines last year versus this coming season for Jordan Travis is last year I felt like he didn't run as much, and it was slightly because the offense was allowed to pass at a higher rate. They were able to complete stuff down the field. They were more bombastic offense vertically in the passing game. But I think we also know Jordan Travis is still fully capable of being a deadly weapon as a running quarterback. So I'm very interested this year how they kind of balance that with the fact that the offense is going to be so good vertically. How much does it force teams to play off the ball, opening up stuff short that Jordan Travis can take advantage of, whether that's throwing 2 tight ends who now can control in the middle of the field with more effectiveness than FSU has had in recent years, or if it's with JT using his legs. So do I think he takes a step forward? Yeah, I do. I think we'll see him from the efficiency standpoint. I know we're going to touch on this a little bit more. I think he'll improve in all those marks. Do I think he's going to be a drastically better player? No, but I think it's a guy who's going to understand that he has an offense around him where he can do anything and everything he wants to, and that he has a full, firm grasp of what's expected of him.
Yeah, I think I think framing the question about Jordan is interesting. That is Jordan Travis going to take a big step forward, or is the offense around Jordan Travis going to take a step forward? This is going to be the first season where he and Mike Norvell realistically has had two legitimate number one wide receivers, potentially two or three number one type tight ends, and there's varying degrees of their capabilities, but all three of them, I mean, I think we feel like, and we'll get to that when we get to the tight end preview, all three of them we feel like are going to be pretty decent sized contributors to this offense. And then you've got an incredible run game behind them. Kevin, I'm going to get to you for your thoughts in a second. I'm a diehard Eagles fan. Jalen Hurts obviously is the quarterback there. I've listened to I listened to quite a bit of information about the Eagles and their offense. And there's a lot of similarities between the Eagles and Florida State with what they do at quarterback. And some different film people I've been listening to this offseason have talked about everything that happens with the Philadelphia Eagles happens because of who Jalen Hurts is as a quarterback, specifically who he is as a runner. I think that you have to start with the same conversation with Florida State. The first thing you've got to think about when you think about Jordan Travis is his ability to run. Look at Florida. Florida couldn't stop him from running the football when he needed to, when he felt like he needed to escape the pocket and go get plays. And ultimately, it doomed them in that football game. I think everything starts and stops with Jordan Travis's ability to run the football, and then off of that, the passing games comes with it. So it's interesting. I'm going to apologize if you hear frogs in the background. We've had about 8 inches of rain. I know one was just going crazy. Chris already heard it earlier. So if you hear frogs squeaking in the background, I apologize. Kev, Chris gave a great holistic approach or thought process to Jordan Travis and the offense. Are there areas where you feel like JT can improve? I'm going to say game-wise, but also like technically. Are there areas where you feel like he can take another step forward?
Well, I kind of want to agree with Chris. I think that there is a component that JT doesn't have to improve for his optics to improve, right? When was the last time you saw an Ohio State quarterback that wasn't in the Heisman conversation? And I don't think that's necessarily because they never have busts at quarterback. It's just when talent is around you, it makes you look better as the quarterback. We want to associate wins and losses. We want to associate points scored with quarterbacks. Well, a component of that is, you take a mailman and you put him on a talented team and he's invited to New York City. So I think that you have to, there's 10 other people on the field. You have to take those into account. So I think that should be said just to start out with. I think that's how you can put confidence that his numbers will get better this year, straight up. So where can he improve? What are we looking at? So I think I'm going to go back to this stat page that SIS did. This is his 2022 stats. This is his 2021 stats. Really, I want to kind of direct your eyes to a couple of places. The first is this on target rate, 20 plus yards downfield. You can see in 2021, he was in the bottom 0 to 19th percentile. So he was bottom 20 percentile. Skip forward a year, and now he's in the top 20th percentile. So you can see really where he improved as a passer. Just that giant jump in on target rate, 20 plus yards downfield. I think that there's not much room for improvement there. I mean, 60%, 57.9%, whatever it is, on target rate downfield is pretty darn good. But it's going to help to have a second big body. So I don't want to discount what Jordan Travis did between 21 and 22, but you have to factor in the fact that he had a 6'7" body to throw to. So his target literally increased in size. Like if you made a dartboard twice as big, it's going to be easier to hit the bullseye, right? So there is a factor of that. I think both things played into it to go from bottom 20th percentile to top 20th percentile. So that's where he really improved last year. I think that you could still see some of the accuracy improve, especially in the middle of the field. Hopefully having Jaheim Bell there also is a big difference maker. Again, on target rate also has to do with the size of target. So if you're throwing to Jaheim Bell instead of, a Micah Pittman, that could make a difference. But really, I think where Jordan Travis stands apart and where he doesn't get enough conversation is in this bust percentage. So everybody looks at Jordan and says, well, he's a big playmaker, right? There's a huge correlation between explosive plays and win percentage. So if you can have more explosive plays, you win more games. Jordan Travis is in the top 20th percentile, 2021 and 22 at making big plays happen. But what happened was his bust percentage became elite as well in 2022. And I think you'll see that consistently if you look at his highlights and what he does well. Jordan Travis doesn't let plays go negative.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The offense as a whole last year did an excellent job of staying at the chains or playing forward. And, that was a major issue when Mike Norvell and them first got here to town, was that they lived behind the chains, and it's really tough to have success. Your offensive success rate drastically increases as you play in front of the chains, or at least stay at the chains. And with Jordan, I mean, every quarterback makes a bad decision on a certain throw here or there that ends up in an interception. Jordan Travis certainly has had a few in his career. But in general, he makes the right decision a drastic amount of the time. And so another thing that Brendan kind of hit on, you can read it, is he did as a secondary piece to his quarterback preview is why Jordan Travis should have elite efficiency as a passer. And he kind of dived in on past Mike Norvell quarterbacks with Riley Ferguson and Brady White in comparison to Jordan. And the progression that Jordan has shown every year correlates to the progression that those guys he showed over a 2-year span. Obviously, Jordan's had a little bit more of a lifespan with Mike Norvell as his coach than those guys were afforded just because of COVID and everything and how it's worked out for him as a quarterback. So the expectation is going into this year where he's really the third year of being a full-time guy in this offense and understanding everything this offense can do for him. The expectation is that those numbers continue to creep up because historically under Mike Norvell, that's always been the case. And there's not a reason to believe Jordan has hit his ceiling or reached a point where he's just not going to progress. I'm not one, and having dealt with Jordan Travis a lot and at one point bet against him because, I had my doubts early in his time at FSU. I'm not one to do that anymore because he's consistently been so good at doing that. And he's a kid that, from a confidence standpoint, he's just a whole different level than he's ever been in his career. And that's been a constant progression for him as well. But that was noticeable last year that he wholeheartedly felt comfortable with this being his team, his offense, and the burden being upon his shoulders. And, having that under his belt with the expectations that are going to come for this football team this year, I don't think it's going to impact him in a negative manner. In fact, I think it probably will elevate his game just because I think that's how he's wired.
Yeah. I would say it's interesting to me. We've not seen a Mike Norvell quarterback in his third year. We know with Ferguson and Brady White, from year 1 to year 2, there was massive leaps. We saw that with Jordan Travis. In year 3 for Jordan Travis, it was a massive leap. I'm not sure what we can realistically expect for this next year. There's not a lot of data out there that we're going to find that's going to tell us what quarterbacks have done for Mike Norvell in their fourth season. I'm really anxious to see Jordan, but again, it all is going to come back to Kev. You had the 2021 numbers up there. The plays down the field. We don't need to pull them back up, but the plays down the field, if you recall, and everybody that covers this football team was screaming it at the time, they're throwing slot fades to Keyshawn Helton, and everybody loves Keyshawn Helton, and I will never say a bad thing about him, but that's not a winning play for you. Now you're throwing you were throwing them last year to Micah Pittman. You're throwing go routes to Johnny Wilson and Pokey Wilson, Pokey, who was, getting solo coverage because Johnny was getting so much attention in years previously. You're relying on these guys and they're getting double covered and they've got safeties capped over the top. And, Keyshawn was coming off of some serious injuries and wasn't the biggest, most physical player. Now you've got real freaks around Jordan and you've surrounded him with real talent. Even going back to last year, the number of drops that Cam McDonald had in the middle of the field when he was wide open, those really hindered them at times. And I would imagine if you go back and insert those catches into Jordan's numbers, they look even more astronomical than what they were last year. You bring in some more talent, you bring in some more reliable pieces around Jordan. I think the sky's the limit. I think there's a reason everybody, and I think we all agree with this, there's a reason everybody's talking about him as a Heisman contender. Kevin, you were bringing a couple clips up there. I thought what Chris was talking about, that confidence, was important. We saw Jordan Travis finish on a different level, in my opinion, this last year than we saw. There was a time in the middle of the season, and Chris, maybe you want to touch on this. There was a time in the middle of the season where people were legitimately asking, what's wrong with the Jordan Travis, Mike Norvell relationship? It looked
Why won't he
labored.
run? Why won't he run was another question mark that came up. Yeah.
It looked labored around that NC State game and that little stretch there. I don't know if you want to touch on that, Chris. I don't think there was ever really anything to it, but
I don't think there was either. I think NC State was a bad day at the office, and not solely for an individual, not Mike Norvell, not Jordan Travis, in general for that team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, especially in the second half of that game. And I just think that's what it was. Like, I don't think there was some great rift. I don't think because of how that last play went. That last play was designed to go the way it went, and it didn't succeed, and that is that. But that's the way it was called. It could have been executed better, whatever. That's in the past. I don't think there was ever a great rift. Jordan's an excellent team leader, and that's not cliche BS. He really is. Like, he's a guy, I kind of call him a chameleon because I think he does an excellent job of fitting in with a lot of different groups. Immensely impressive relationship with a lot of his receivers. Trey Benson, Maurice Smith, for example, are a few guys on the offensive side of the ball where JT just has a great connection. It's apparent away from the football field as much as on it. No, I don't have a concern with that. And with the running last year, I think, again, it was by design to a degree of FSU played for boom plays. FSU's offense is generally designed to be efficient, but also to hit big plays. That's what they're playing to. And I think last year there were instances where they went for the big play and said, Jordan, maybe tucking, going and taking a few yards because the play was designed to go for said big play. I think the interesting thing this year with the fact that, last year when they dialed up a big play, not all the time, but obviously a majority of the time, it was probably a Johnny Wilson type of play. Once in a while, Pokey Wilson got in that mix, wheel route to Ja'Kai Douglas. There's other examples, but I'm saying in general, the basic view of the offense, it's a Johnny Wilson big play offense. I think that connotation is gone. I think you got Johnny Wilson, you got Keon Coleman, you got guys like Jaheim Bell who can attack the middle, guys who have more veteran experience than Ja'Kai Douglas, Lawrence Toafili, who are capable of being a guy where you dial up a play for them in that manner. I think with that factor, that teams are going to be soft coveraging FSU a little bit more often if they can't pressure him, which one would hope they cannot because you have an experienced, talented offensive line that you're expecting to be good. I think with that in mind, that will be interesting how much more Jordan, if he wants to take those yards, there's going to be more yards there. So I think that's what a running difference this year. I'm not expecting him to suddenly become the rusher he was early in his career again.
Right.
But I do think he will run the ball more this coming year than he actually ran it this past year.
And I think the schedule plays a part in that too. I mean, they were in a lot of games where it just wasn't necessary. And Kev, I want to pull his UF clips up, but I think it's interesting. And Kev, I want your opinion on this, and then Chris follow up with that. Do you think that this offense this year under Jordan Travis is more not as boom oriented? Do you think that there's a potential for it to be more consistent, more 7-8 play drives instead of one play touchdown shots for 70? Those are going to be there. Obviously, those are going to be there. Those are a staple of a Mike Norvell offense. But do you think the potential's there for them to be more the 20 yard, 15, 25 yard gain consistently over the course of a drive, as opposed to a 1, a 2, and then a 70 or whatever? With the weapons that they have, they lost that Pokey Wilson, that deep post threat. That's gone, but Johnny's still obviously there. Keon's not. Coleman's game's not based on being able to run the post. That's not who he is, though he is an explosive vertical player. You still have some of those threats. You got a Jaheim Bell who's going to work the middle of the field, maybe from the slot, some from the tight end position. You have those guys. Is there going to be a more concerted effort to maybe work that 15 to 25 yard range of the field more in this offense, or do you think it's just going to be what Mike does? It's going to be explosives.
Kev, I want to hear your thoughts first.
So, yeah, I think we talk about explosive plays and Mike's vertical offense. And I mean, if you gave me a second to pull up the stats, I could show you this. where they really put their effort into is throwing in that intermediate range, so the 10 to 20 yard range. They're not throwing a bunch of like rainbow lollipops, trying to like just toss it over defenses. That's what they're going for, like that 10 to 20 yard range. That's what they're going for. I think those just tend to turn into big plays against teams with lesser competition. I think if you want to map out what this offense is going to be like, you can look at the teams that FSU was more talented than last year and how they game plan for that. So when they had the talent advantage over Georgia Tech, over, Louisiana, over Duquesne, they were still taking those shots. They were still going for explosive plays because that's what they live off of. That's what they want. They want to get the ball in Jaheim Bell's hands 15 yards downfield. So he just has to make a safety miss a tackle and it's a touchdown. So the times where they were patient and they were trying to move the ball methodically, what really comes to mind was Clemson, LSU, parts of NC State, where it felt like they were a little bit more careful. LSU in particular, that game felt like they were having to manufacture ways to get 10, 15 yards and chunk the ball downfield in little ways. There was that one, trick play to get a touchdown, but I think that they're actually going to be more boom this year. I think they're going to really be trying to get those explosive plays up because I think that's their priority.
Yeah, I think the truth is that the numbers are going to come more to the middle from both ends. I think there'll be less 1-2 play type of drives. I think there'll also be less double-digit play drives. I think it's more sweet spot of like a 6 to 10 type of range, because I do think they're going to be able to not dink and dunk a team, but play them a little bit more underneath, see if something breaks, whether it's in the running game or the passing game. But they're still going to set up for big plays. I don't think they are going to have any fear of testing the vertical ability of opposing defenses and forcing them to play off the ball and opening the middle of the field, because they now have better players to attack the middle of the field with in the passing attack outside of vertically. I'm saying more underneath, short and intermediate passing. They don't technically have the guy vertically who might be as effective in the middle of the field. As your boy Pokey.
Pokey was my boy. I was a big fan. I'll stand on that. I tend to agree with you guys. I think that they're just going to be able to create so many isolation throws, and that's what Mike Norvell wants to be. He wants to be an ISO thrower. He wants to be able to get guys one-on-one matchups. He is the king of matchups. I mean, it's the offense built for playmakers. I think there's going to be a lot of shot plays to be had, and I don't think they're going to maybe look like traditional shot plays, but they're going to be big bodies one-on-one with guys, miss a tackle, break a tackle, make somebody miss whatever, go for 70, and that's what it's going to look like this year. This offense really excites me. I can't wait for the first game to break that thing down and see what it all is going to look like.
I think the counterpoint to the Georgia Tech and the games that I was just bringing up was Boston College, where, they did go to a lot more screens. They were able to manufacture big gains through shorter throws. And I mean, it's because they wanted to kind of see their athletes in space against a kind of softer coverage. And so maybe you will see more of that, like more screens, more just trying to get the ball in the hands of these dynamic athletes.
There were teams that threatened the run game last year. There were teams that decided they were going to take the run game away with box numbers. Oklahoma did it. Boston College did it. Florida a little bit tried to do it, but they didn't really commit one way or the other. I'm not sure if we're losing Chris here. Looks like maybe he's frozen. Nope, there we go.
No, I'm here.
His focus.
Good. Sorry, I was intently listening.
So the Boston College and Oklahoma specifically come to mind for me.
And Jordan OU in the backside, though.
Yeah, Jordan threw for what 400 plus yards against Oklahoma.
Yeah, and Johnny went for 200 plus, if I recall correctly. Yeah, I mean,
and I think this is we're getting derailed a little bit from the quarterback preview specifically, but it's fun to have this kind of conversation because we don't get to talk with Chris about this stuff all the time, and I enjoy it. So it's intriguing to see how they're going to get these matchups in. We know that QB1 Jordan Travis can get the ball of these guys in every spot on the field when he needs to, and he's going to be in complete control. The other aspect I'm very interested in is about tempo. Do you think that they are going to be more tempo-minded with this offense this year, knowing that they've got a drastic talent advantage offensively, in my opinion, against every defense they're going to face? And maybe the defense is going to be, we'll see. I'm confident the defense is going to be good, but do you think that they're going to give Jordan the keys and say, hey, run this sucker as fast as you can?
I think they will at times. I think the goal with the offense this year is going to be basically confusion, uncomfortableness, and off-balanceness for the opposing defense. Kind of putting them in a washing machine. Are they going to attack us with the run? Are they going to run straight at us or to the edges? Are they going to go vertical? Are they going to throw to the middle of the field? Are they going to screen us to death and try to block it up and do things? The offense is capable of doing any and all. And I think the goal for FSU this year is going to be, well, we just gave that to them on this drive. So the next drive, we're flipping the script and doing something different. And I think you do that in play calling. I think you do that in the tempo you run with and all of that. One other thing I'm interested in a grand scheme thing with tempo this year is new clock rules, how much it impacts it. I don't think it will impact it drastically. I do think scoring will come down just slightly. But I am interested in those first 2-3 weeks, especially as officials are uncomfortable with the new rules, to see how it all goes. Because we're going to have a point where a team's trying to zoom, and then we have a clock issue.
So we're going to move this forward here a little bit. Kev's going to bring up a couple Florida clips. We didn't want to go too clip heavy from this because we've done so much on Jordan Travis this offseason, and obviously we could talk about him for days and days and days because of how talented he is. But just back to the Jordan running, and B, the Jordan just taking over a game. In this Florida game, the confidence really stood out to me. He decided that they were not going to lose this game, and he really put this team on their back. In a game that could have gone away from him very quickly and very easily, he put him on the back. He just became a man. I thought this was where he really cemented himself as the absolute leader and the absolute alpha of this football team, in my opinion.
He is still so fun when he turns vertically up the field to watch just go.
Yeah,
I always remember the BC game and being like, oh my God, like you'd seen him in practice. You knew he was athletic. You knew he could run, but there's something about it in real time where, yards disappear quickly. And he runs with an intent.
Can't believe they called him down on both of those intent to slide nonsense. All right, let's move this forward. I don't even want to talk about it because God forbid the young man were to miss some time, but we're going to see him in garbage time. Kev, do you have the Heisman pick? Oh, I think he might, or maybe he's just turning the camera off. I don't know, but we're going to talk about Tate. We're going to talk about Tate Rodemaker. Tate's here. What, is this year 4 for Tate? I mean, holy moly, feels like he's been here forever. Tate's primary backup number 1. We would agree with that.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. He's quarterback 2 for this team. I think what he did, Kev's so excited right now that we lost him for a moment. But what he did at Louisville was extremely beneficial for him as an individual, as a player, and for his standing with the team. And I think he's only built off of that. I think his confidence this past spring versus last year going into the season is night and day. He's really stepped forward in that. I think he's much more comfortable. It's tough being the backup quarterback on a team and being a guy that a lot of people discounted before you went and had that success. I think he's a lot more comfortable in his own skin. Not that he ever had doubts about his ability. I just think he understands his standing where he's at and the belief that the coaches believe in him. And we saw this. I mean, Kenny Dillingham, Mike Norvell, what they did with Jordan in a time where he needed support, they were phenomenal at it, and it helped build him up to who and what he is today. Tony Tokarz, Mike Norvell, the rest of the offensive staff has done that with Tate, and I definitely think it's taken a hold with Tate. And Tate in the spring was good. He had more good days than he had bad days, and truthfully, it was very lopsided towards good days. He'd still have moments where he made throws where you're like, because he has that arm. There's times where the belief in the arm is just so great because he does have great shoulder to fingertip ability as a passer, and I have no concerns ultimately if Tate ended up becoming the quarterback of this team. I think the skill around him would help elevate him. I think FSU could become a more run-heavy team if necessary. I think there's ways to pivot and adjust where you can get away with, not to diminish him, but more of a game manager type of quarterback than a general that you have in Jordan Travis.
It was interesting, the Louisville game. The game plan drastically changed. They went very heavy RPO-based, and Mike's always run a lot of RPOs, but it was just a lot of RPO post. It was very, very clean, very simple reads for Tate. They got him comfortable. They got him involved. After a pretty rough end to the first half and some rather yucky throws. But Brendan posted in the article that you can read on Knowles 24/7. Tate ended the year with a 135.3 passer rating, which is pretty average, which I think speaks to the potential to be a good game manager. Kev, give me your thoughts on Tate. A, is he there with you? B, do you have the Heisman pick that we can see?
Yeah, I don't know what Heisman pick you're referencing, but Tate is I think people misevaluated Tate. So Tate came in as a 3-star, and for some reason people expected the reason he was a 3-star was because his ceiling wasn't there. I kind of disagree. I think he's got a good arm. I think that he's more athletic than you would think. If you go back and actually watch that Louisville game, there's a couple times where he breaks the pocket and glides pretty smoothly down the field. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a kind of 4.6 guy, 4.7 guy, which is plenty fast to make defenses to kind of respect you. If I were a betting man, I would say he's probably your 2024 starter. I know that's probably not a popular opinion, but as you see, these quarterbacks get better every year under Mike Norvell. I have no reason to believe that wouldn't happen for guys that are sitting on the bench kind of watching from the side. He's going through the same practices. He's getting the same kind of coaching. Yeah, he's got to learn from some game mistakes, and I would expect your win percentage to go downwards if he were to go in there. But yeah, I think you guys were right. He doesn't need to win football games. He needs to get the ball to talented players on the outside. And frankly, outside of LSU, maybe Florida and Clemson, I think you can pretty much out-talent your whole schedule. And I don't really know if you need much more than a game manager. He's a different player than Jordan Travis, and Jordan Travis is a special quarterback that as FSU fans you should be excited to have. But I think Tate is a serviceable quarterback, and if you look around the college football landscape, you'll be surprised at the level of quarterback play you normally see from other schools. Not everybody has 3 Heisman winners in their relatively recent past.
It is funny. I had a conversation with a buddy, college football fan, not an FSU fan, and we were talking about backup quarterbacks. And he said, if your backup quarterback went into the portal, how appealing would he have been for another program? Tate would have been appealing for a lot of programs.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the arm talent allows you to do a lot of different things. He is a capable athlete, as you referenced, Kev. And he's a kid that I think has the experience now in the college game that allows him to be a little more calm and cemented in and capable of handling the good and the bad that comes with playing the position. Biggest thing I want to see from Tate, from him this year, presuming JT stays healthy, is when he gets those opportunities, make the most of them. Just consistently build. It's not go out and just make a big play because you want to get not like go and operate the offense, show basically an audition for what's going to be a quarterback race after this season.
Do you think there will be anything to glean from garbage time reps this year? Do you think we're preparing Tate for 2024 as our number 1? We're going to get him all of them. Brock Glenn, we're going to get reps to. AJ Duffy, we're going to get. Do you think there will be anything? Because I think the first question is going to be if in week 2 they're up 30, God, hopefully, and it's time to go to the backups. The first time Tate doesn't go out there, as the number 1 backup in a garbage time situation, I think fans are going to read a ton of stuff into it. Do you think there will be anything to glean from those types of scenarios?
Well, saying that scenario plays out, I think in that case with Tate, Tate can go into a game situation. He's done it before. I don't think he gets a whole lot of value as just going out there outside of in-game reps. I think it's far more valuable for AJ Duffy and Brock Glenn. Right. In Duffy's case, it's sort of now or never, with at least getting yourself into that mix of battling for a quarterback spot and kind of progressing as a college quarterback. And AJ's got plenty of talent, nice arm, capable of making some really big time throws. Biggest thing for him is just kind of good rep, putting that together. He's very much struggled with that, and also handling bad moments much better. It's not something he's been particularly effective at so far in his college career. In practices of bad moments will derail him, which is a concern, but not uncommon with younger quarterbacks. In Brock's case, it's, welcome to the college game and enjoy your cup of coffee and get an opportunity. I think it would be more valuable in a scenario such as being up 4 touchdowns on a Southern Miss in the third quarter of the second week of the season at 10:30 p.m. because of an 8:30 kickoff to get a Brock Glenn or an AJ Duffy out there than a Tate. I think Tate's value is more up 2 or 3 touchdowns late third quarter. You're ready to do that, but this game needs to be officially put away. Let him go have those reps have more value to Tate than to the other guys.
Yeah,
because Tate is the guy who should lead the competition going into next year.
I agree with you, and I was curious your thoughts on that, and you went where I thought you would. It's interesting though. You brought up AJ Duffy, and you talked about kind of what's going on with him. Let's transition to him. Brendan listed him as it's now or never.
Well, I mean, this day and age of quarterbacks, they transfer. Okay. It's just the honest truth of it. It's not. I'm not rooting for AJ Duffy to transfer. I don't expect AJ Duffy to transfer. It's just the way that position works. Very few schools are able to carry 3 guys together for a lengthy period of time without adding a new guy. And I think it's good for AJ that Brock came in and is pushing him. I think that's valuable for him. I think there were positive moments in the spring because of that. But AJ is a kid who just kind of has to take a step forward. He's in that standard area of the progression of a reserve quarterback who's trying to learn a system and maybe get called into duty, not necessarily this coming season, but the following one as a reserve, who needs to start showing, well, he's probably capable of that. And there's throws he makes that certainly says, yes, he is. I think it's more handling the pressure that comes with the position, the ups and downs that comes with the position, and just being able to flush stuff and move on. I think that's the biggest thing. Interesting thing to me with AJ Duffy in the spring is when other guys were excelling around him and he was having a rough day, it seemed to really weigh on him, kind of bog him down. I think at that position, it's just got to be next rep. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's learned over time too. In no way do I want people to run to Twitter and act like AJ Duffy's, on his way out of this program and not very good. It's not true. It's not that. It's more, it is now or never for AJ Duffy. It's just that position this day and age in college football with the portal. AJ Duffy is a valuable kid who was a highly thought of recruit who, if he was to opt out of the program because for whatever reason it go right this year, would have high level suitors. Mm-hmm. That's just the way that's the natural order of things. So it would be better for FSU to truly establish a staircase of experience and years at every position, but certainly at the quarterback position. That's
there feels like there's a little bit of a to be determined there for him and his game right now. Confidence being one of the main things he needs to find. He just needs to have confidence in himself, not worry about what others are doing. Kev, did you get a chance to watch him this spring?
Yeah, I got a fair chance to watch AJ. I think I think Chris nailed it. He's a talented kid. He's got the skill sets you're looking for. I think one of the things you're worried about with him right now is he's a little cavalier with the ball. I think he's not afraid to try to do something or try to make a play happen or like try to shuffle pass out of the backfield or just things like that. That I think can be a catalyst to be a really dynamic quarterback in the future if it's something that you can hone and develop and get game reps with and kind of use to your advantage. I do think he could be a little bit of a gamer, and I think that could be fun. He really looks up to Jordan Travis. You can see it in just like the way he like follows him around and like he even like tucks his shorts up into his, like the same way that Jordan does.
Yeah.
So it's just little things. You can tell he's trying to model his game after Jordan Travis. And I honestly think he might not be quite as dynamic of an athlete, but he's got the baseline throwing mechanics that are better than where Jordan was at this point in his career. And so I think there's a chance he could really develop into someone that's dynamic and a fun quarterback to watch. But I think what's hard for him is I think he's a quarterback that almost needs to be in a place where he has the freedom to make mistakes and learn from them and grow from them. And I'm not sure if he'll have that opportunity with how crowded this quarterback room is starting to get at Florida State. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get to see it.
He
Yeah,
had a day. He had a day early in the spring. I forget specifically when it was, but one of the first 5 days of spring ball, he was outstanding. He made multiple vertical throws down the sideline onto a spot, attacked the middle of the field, just consistently made the right decision and made good throws. But he also had a few days where decisions weren't very good. A lot of throws weren't very good. That's sort of the picture of who and what he is right now. And it's not unusual for a guy to be that inconsistent. But there were days, and you can go back listen to Mike Norvell interviews from the spring.
Mhm.
There were days where he did speak up on Duffy, and it wasn't just blown smoke. It was the kid had a good day. He showed the signs of the quarterback he's capable of being. He's got to be more consistent. Pretty standard issue for a guy. I do, and I've thought this since many steps on cameras. I think Brock Glenn arriving here is the best thing to have in AJ Duffy, because Tate, Louisville last year kind of established where Tate is, and obviously Jordan is where he is. So AJ was kind of comfortable living in that third place trophy area. Now he's got a guy who's going to contest for that.
Yeah. AJ feels a lot like Tate in some regards in that their timelines, and that in traditional college football, this is a young man in year 3, year 4. You'd be looking at it pressing into duty and saying he's ready now. But we're in a new era, and the new era involves the transfer portal, and it's just one of those things. We're going to find out where his mind is at the end of the season as we go through it, and we're all rooting for him, certainly. It's interesting though, that I think that the conversation around AJ Duffy really starts with his mindset, not necessarily his game, and the same can be said for Brock Glenn. The words that Brendan used to describe Brock Glenn was his poise. I mean, so much of what was spoken about the young man was not necessarily about his talent, but how he handled himself on the field. Chris, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was being thrown upon him first practices. He's in a quarterback room with 2 guys who are ultra experienced and have game reps and know everything about this offense, and a third guy who had, basically a full season of practices and was in his second spring. So all guys well ahead of him. They weren't slowing it down for Brock Glenn. They were going full steam ahead, and he was having to deal with it. He'd make mistakes and have bad moments because, well, it's the first time he's ever done that in a college atmosphere. But the thing they liked about him was the next time he did it, he was always better. And he kind of handled it. Like the weight never became too much upon his shoulders to handle what was being demanded of him. I think that's just his demeanor wholeheartedly. He's a kid that I think he's very calm and casual and a high believer in what he's capable of doing. He also, he doesn't have a distinct familiarity with the Florida State version of this offense. He does have a familiarity with what Mike Norvell likes to do from his Memphis days, from Brock's high school days, which have a lot of ties to that Memphis program that Mike built. So there is a degree of he is comfortable. But yeah, just in talking to, people around the program, guys around that room, people that understand that position and what's demanded of it at FSU, Brock Glenn's a guy that very much impressed him during the spring through 15 practices of just kind of not acting like a freshman at all.
And Brendan really, in the article and the preview that he wrote, I mean, he makes it seem like there's a potential for, as the season goes on here, that Brock Glenn could surpass everybody, not Jordan Travis, obviously, but could surpass Tate, could surpass AJ Duffy both and become QB2. That would be obviously a pretty big rise for a player who's not going to have a lot of reps under his belt, obviously, going into the season. Kev, we were pretty big fans of him coming out. We obviously did a scouting report on him that you could go back on the Noles 24/7 YouTube channel and watch. You got to watch Brock just like you got to watch AJ and the rest of the quarterbacks this spring. What were your thoughts? What are your expectations for him in his freshman year?
Yeah, Brock has he has a great pocket presence. He's got a good arm. He's got solid mechanics, got good footwork. I think he really represents his potential is the next level of what Brady White was giving at Memphis. I don't think he's a guy that's gonna kill you running the football, but he's a guy that I think is going to be able to deliver the football anywhere on the field. I think he's already shown that he's reading defenses pretty well. I think that's kind of the pro and con of him. I think he might be, I think he might have taken in this offense really quickly, and you see him making really fast reads for a freshman, being able to move on to a second or sometimes even third receiver where maybe some of the older guys might not necessarily be at that point in terms of that development as a quarterback. So
Mhm.
I think he does the quarterbacking things well, and I think that will shine through. And I mean, as a coach that stuck with Brady White when I'm sure that he had more athletic options.
Yeah.
I think it kind of shows you that that's something they value, a guy that they can trust, and a guy that is going to make solid decisions. And they want athletes, and they want athletic. They want to be able to run the football. And at the end of the day, if that's your offense, you need a guy that can deliver the ball to those athletes. That's their number one job.
Yeah, rule number one in the offense is make the right decision.
Right. Yeah. You can't be an offense built for playmakers and have a guy back there that can't get the ball to the playmakers. It doesn't make any sense. So there's a lot of credibility or a lot of hello, Captain Obvious when it comes to you want a guy that understands your system that can go in there and excel at doing at least the basics of your system. And it seems like that may be where Brock Glenn is going to be at this year on a basicer level, or a more basic level than maybe a Tate Rodemaker and a Jordan Travis, obviously. But there's a lot to be said that we're having this conversation about AJ Duffy, where he's trying to figure out who he is and where he is. And it seems like Brock Glenn's got the testicular fortitude to come in and say, this is where I am. And I'm curious to see, like Chris said, the best thing that maybe that could have happened for AJ Duffy is Brock Glenn stepping foot on campus. I'm curious to see those two compete this year with one another and where their minds are at in the fall. We're at 47 minutes. I don't think anybody's giving you 47 minutes of just straight quarterback talk. That's just what we do. I can't help it. We're junkies. This is what we love to do. We're going to put a grade on this, though. Brendan, well, everybody here's read it.
He went, what? His confidence was 7 out of 10. I thought my man came in low personally.
That was last year. This year he came in at 10 out of 10, right?
Oh, did he? Okay, I'm sorry.
He 10 out of 10 it?
I thought he went 7 out of 10. My bad.
No, last year he did a little section. How do we do last year? And I would welcome everybody to please go read that. He had a confidence rating of 7. This year it was 10 out of 10. 10 being elite, 1 being among the worst positions nationally. I won't give away what he said, but he did give it a 10 out of 10. Kevin, ranking this quarterback room 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being amongst the worst. Where do you stand for your confidence level for this quarterback room?
I mean, you have Jordan Travis, who I firmly believe is a top 5 quarterback, maybe top 3 quarterback in the country. Then you have 2 4-stars that are young bucks, and you have a 3-star has a high ceiling, been around the program for a long time. I'm sure there's other rooms in the country where you could be like top to bottom, they're better. I think that's a handful of teams.
Texas comes up in that conversation, for example.
They feel like an outlier at this point.
Old Miss has a lot in that room, so they'd probably be mentioned as
right,
well.
But I would take Jordan Travis over whoever's starting for either of those programs next year.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And so, the depth might not be the same. I would give it a 9. I think LSU's room might be better. There might be better rooms.
And Daniels are probably Nussmeier being better than what we think, or potentially being better than what Tate probably is, but Jordan being better than what Jaden Daniels is an interesting comparison.
Right. So I'd give it a 9. I don't know if I'd say it's the best quarterback room in the country, but it's a quarterback room that if you're going to give me the option every year to take, I will take it every single year and never ask a question.
Yeah, I'd fall in at 9. It's pretty tough for me to give anything a 10 unless I think it's literally the best in the country.
Yeah.
But I'm very comfortable with the 1. I think FSU's got a better 2 than a vast majority of schools in the country, and a guy that knows what he would be asked to do here. I think the future is bright, both with the 2 that are behind him and what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, I think I'm at a 9 also. I've been sitting here thinking about it. I think it would be a 10 for me if we knew for sure Tate didn't have those oh shit moments in him.
Yep.
But
if we saw more than a half of good
I
play.
think we know that they still exist. I think we know that they're still in there. They do still exist, and that is enough for me to knock them down to a 9. If those weren't in there, I think it's a clear-cut 10, because I do agree that Jordan Travis is a top 5 quarterback nationally. Not saying he's a top 5 draft prospect, because I know I'm going to get a text from somebody later on saying, how could you say that? He is a top 5 quarterback, college quarterback, for this season.
So an interesting side note on what you just said, AB. ACC voting obviously is coming up with ACC kickoff.
Yep.
Does Jordan Travis win first team quarterback, or does Drake May?
I think Drake May will, because
I do too.
Of what his numbers were last year.
Yeah,
But
and
I
the
think
media that's voting for him is more based in an area where he's at versus where the other guys
I
at.
think the 3 of us sitting here are smart enough to know that offense is going to be different. Phil Longo was a big reason why Drake May's numbers were as good as they were. I'm not going to let Kev get on his high horse and rant about this, because we've had this conversation. It was interesting. David Hale did his rankings recently. I think he had Drake May first. I believe he had Drake May first over Jordan Travis as far as quarterbacks, but I think he had the Florida State quarterback room as being number 1 overall in the ACC. So Chris, you think Drake May will be 1?
I do. When the league voting comes out, I think it will be Drake May. But it's just an interesting thing because, like, Jordan Travis is a legitimate Heisman candidate. That's not us being an FSU website tooting the horn about the guy. Right. Odd to say that currently. But yet he may not be viewed as the best quarterback in the ACC by the league media. So it's an interesting thing. I mean, I expect Jared Verse to be defensive player of the year, for example, preseason. But I'm just not convinced Jordan will be, because I think there'll be a split of that vote. But at the same time, if I'm picking one of those two currently today as a Heisman candidate, I'm taking Jordan. Yeah. And that's because I think the offense that's going to surround him is better. I think the comfortability, what the offense demands of him, is more well-known than a competitor like Drake May, who's going to have to make a little bit of a transition. There's just a whole lot of little reasons there. I think the world of Drake May. I think he's a really talented cat. But it's just an interesting little side discussion coming up here in the next week.
If I was a better host, I would have had this up in front of me. And I'm going to pull this up, and I have no clue if this is legitimate or not, because I don't gamble. I'm curious to see. All right, so on this website, I don't even know what this is. Like I said, I don't gamble. So on this website, the Heisman Trophy odds. So if Drake May is number 1 on the league preseason polls, if he's number 1, then he should technically be more of a Heisman candidate than Jordan Travis. But Jordan Travis is listed above him as far as odds for Heisman voting. So, I mean, if you go by that, you would think that Jordan Travis should be number 1. But we'll see. I'm curious to see how that plays out.
It's a different question. I think you'd be foolish to say that if you're the New York Jets, you would take Jordan Travis over, Drake May. But Drake May's getting a new offensive coordinator. He's lost his number 1 receiver by far in Josh Downs. Just like we were talking about earlier, how you don't have to be a better quarterback to look better sometimes.
Right.
You don't have to be a worse quarterback to look worse. And I think he's still going to be a top draft prospect. But, there was a quarterback at UNC just a few years ago who going into his sophomore year was thought of as one of the top Heisman candidates because he was very talented, who lost a couple of his best playmakers around him and looked way more pedestrian than he had the year before.
Yeah.
It is a very recent history with Sam Howell doing that. And so I don't think he's going to drop off. He didn't lose quite as much talent around him as Sam Howell did. I mean, he lost basically his whole offense, but I would be surprised because I expect a small step up for Jordan Travis and a small step down for Drake May. And if that happens, that's kind of what I'm projecting.
So Chris decided he wanted to do these videos, and now he's 54 minutes into this quarterback preview. We may never see him on a video again.
If you get me after every vacation, it's gonna be awesome.
We're 55 minutes into a quarterback preview. I promise we will try to keep the others a little bit shorter, but I can't promise anything really. For Chris Nee, for Kevin Little, for myself, Coach AB, we're going to call this a night. Please be sure to get over to Knowles 24/7. Is that promo still running, Chris?
Yeah, 75% off, run until the end of the month. Take advantage of it. It's around $2 a month is what Danes had figured out the other night. So we're going to stick with that as a belief. It's well worth it. We've had a ton of people take advantage of it. Obviously, appreciate that. I feel like we deliver outstanding content within the market. I think we've got a great variety of how we go about doing the business between podcasts, the video stuff you guys do, what you guys do on video. There's nobody else in this market that does it to that level. The recruiting content that we deliver, covering, you know, other sports like basketball, baseball, softball. You know, we bust our backsides, but we do it because we have a great deal of subscribers that want us to do that, and we appreciate it, but we're always looking for more.
Yeah. So get in there, get signed up if you are not already a member. I know so many of the people that are on these different YouTube channels and whatnot. So many of them carry over and they're all subscribers. But if you're not a subscriber, please become one. Please be sure you are liking and subscribing to this channel and this video. Get over to the Noles 24/7 YouTube channel and get on there and like all those videos and subscribe to that channel also. Again, for the three of us for this triumvirate, Trey will probably be back with us next time, and it'll be a little bit better hosted. Thank you. That's the quarterback preview. Deep breath.